Inside Outer Limits is a regular feature on the Paranormal UK radio network. Hello everybody once more. Welcome again to another edition of Inside Outer Limits radio show with myself, Chris Evers, and my co-host, Mr. Philip Mantle. Philip, welcome back. You've been unwell. Hope you're feeling a lot better.
Yeah. I'm still alive. I'm still here. So, I'm still here to pester the wife. So, yes.
I don't know. Well, we had an interesting discussion last time, Phil. I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but with Peter Robbins, and he sends his best regards to you and hopes for a speedy recovery.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Things seem to be, synchronicity, really. I mean, as you well know, Peter worked, hand in glove with the late Bud Hopkins for many years, and just by coincidence, I watched Leslie Kean's documentary on Netflix, Surviving Death. Leslie's known for her UFO work and all the stuff that's appeared in the New York Times. What maybe a lot of people don't realise is that Leslie was Bud's last, how can we say, a girlfriend, lady friend, call it what you will, and it kind of shocked me in some respects because as the series started, there's Bud, and she was with him when he died, which I thought was nice. Nice to have a loved one by your side when you bite the dust. And it was just nice to see him and see Bud walking around. He was a lovely fella, and of course I think of Peter in the same vein when I think of Bud. Because again, he's a real nice guy, and it was just little things pop up, don't they? And they all seem to be, come at the same time. So for those who's not watched the series on Netflix, if they have it, Surviving Death, it's worth a watch. That's all I'll say.
Okie dokie. So this week we've actually got, should I say this fortnight rather, we've got. Well, I think it's the same person, just using a different name, to be quite honest with you, Phil. But we've got one of your authors, who is in fact your co-author of Introducing UFOs, A Young Person's Guide, and that is Ronald J. Kinsella. So, hiya, Ronnie, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Ronnie.
Thank you very much. This is Philip. Oh my God, you've rumbled my game already. You found out, didn't you?
You almost put your posh phone voice on there, because co-author. What's a co-author?
I don't know.
There's no H with author.
I mean, Hull. We put H's where they don't exist, and we take them away where they do exist, as in Hull, U-double-L.
As for those who are not aware, Ronald and Philip are identical twins in every sense of the word. So not only do they look exactly alike, I define anyone that knows them to tell which one you're talking to on the end of a telephone. I wish I'd been a twin, an identical twin. I would have had a field day at what school I went to, lads. It would have been amazing. I got into so much trouble at school. If I'd have had an identical twin, I could have just blamed it on him. Come on, they wouldn't have known the difference, would they? You can get, as identical twins, you can get away with anything, because all you have to do is just blame each other. He won't mate with him, and vice versa. And what can they do?
Not a lot. dear.
Well, Philip and I did have the teachers rather perplexed. Actually, when we were at school, they could never really tell us apart. That's one of the frustrations of them, I think. They just couldn't tell us apart. And our hair was exactly the same, uniform, everything, height. I think if they got to know us very well, they might have noticed slight discrepancies, but we weren't there long enough for them to know that. But we had great fun there. It was fantastic at school.
I can imagine. Excellent.
The Bash Street Kids, that's what it was, the Bash Street Kids.
I would have thought, yeah, it would be great, and Philip Mantle could be Dennis the Menace.
we got into all kinds of trouble, I can assure you. I don't repeat some of it on here. This is a true story. I know we're digressing, but I used to play for the school football team, and I got banned one year for swearing at the teacher. We were playing against a team in Leeds, and we were getting absolutely thumped, and he's shouting and bawling at me. So I told him why I got off, and I got banned. So over the weekend, I wasn't right happy about it. I went into school on Monday morning, and they got hold of me straight to the headmaster's office. I had no idea what was going on, and they said, "What did you do with the football post?" And I'm stood there thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. The school football post had been dug up and thrown down. There was an old railway embankment nearby, and thrown down the railway embankment. And they thought it was me. Well, there was another lad who got banned from the football team as well, only a little kid, a quiet lad, and it was him. I didn't know at the time. I had no idea what they were talking about, but they thought it were me.
Yeah.
Because when he got banned, he didn't appear to be that bothered, whereas I did, so that they automatically thought it were me, and it wasn't. So I got off with that, even though, that was kind of a nut house it was where we went.
Talking about little kids, I mean, I did see at school, talking about bullies, there was one little chap who was picking on Philip, particularly Philip, I don't know why, but I was with him, and I've never seen Philip do this. He literally picked him up. He picked this lad right up and threw him into a thorn bush. So he went flying and just carried on walking and left him there. Yeah, I was at Stockton High School. I love that school, but it's when the bell went, you had to run. The Bash Street Kids, you had to run because the bullies it was the bang in the mouth then. That's what it was. Do you want a bang in the mouth? So as soon as the bell went, me and Philip were like hinge and bracket, scarpering home.
Hinge and bracket, oh dear me. Do you want to explain who Hinge and Bracket are for our American listeners?
Hinge and Bracket were a couple of middle-aged men who dressed up as women. It was a comedy show, very harmless, but
quite funny, actually.
Yes, they were very funny, very, very well-to-do.
But one of them well, they both sang in the show, didn't they? Operatic, and one played piano, and they were actually very good.
Yeah, when they sang, the knickers went flying off the line.
Right, let's get this back on subject.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Ronnie's a long-standing colleague of ours, and for those who are not aware, earlier this year, I published a book with Ronnie, and it's called Introducing UFOs, A Young Person's Guide. And this is a project I had, Chris, on the back burner for some years. I can't remember when the idea first appeared to me. I'm talking quite a number of years back. And I had a file in my old filing cabinet with, some of this material printed out. So it was one of those things where I'll finish that next year. I'll do it next year. And it never got there. Then I was ill in between. So this year with the lockdown, the first one, I should say last year, 2020, there were a couple of projects I wanted to finish, and this was the first one. It had been bugging me. Every time I went in this particular drawer of the filing cabinet, the file with Introducing UFO seemed to hit me in the eyeballs, as if to say, finish me.
Yeah, screaming at you, take me out and get me done.
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea behind the book was it's for an adolescent audience, high school type of audience. We've just been discussing it. I think back when I was at high school, it was the time that you got your own ideas, your own likes, your own dislikes, I didn't want to play my big brother's records anymore. Records. I started to want my own and things like that. And of course, I was very much interested in the paranormal at that time, and that's how it started to grow. So I thought, there was no UFO books for that kind of audience at that time that I was aware of anyway.
Well, that's right, Phil. I mean, we had things like Donald Kehoe, didn't we, from America, and and the Warminster Thing, and all that kind of stuff to read. There was nothing specifically aimed at the generation you're speaking of.
Yeah, I mean, I know a chap who bought Introducing UFOs. He says, when I was a teenager, I bought Alan Hynek and John Keel and read it and couldn't understand a word of it because it was for an adult audience. And I've also lectured at times in the past in high school. And I found that, the students, they probably asked the most interesting questions. And so the idea was not to indoctrinate anyone, but, anyone can go on Google, type in UFOs, and you'll get a zillion and one websites. But just because the first one that pops up on the list you go to, it doesn't necessarily make it the best. And you've no idea who these people are that's put these things together. So with that in mind, I thought, right, we don't like to read it because you just won't read it. So the book is actually just shy of 150 pages. And it goes through the decades, 3 UFO cases at a time. So obviously we start with Kenneth, I'm assuming that the teenage audience doesn't know a great deal. And it's like starting back, Chris, is to put your first foot on the ladder. Generally, UFOs and throughout the same. You can make a book, or you've got more put together.
Yeah.
One of the things.
Yeah. Why did you say in 47? I know we view it as the modern era, but there are reports from before that date.
Well, yeah, and we give a brief outline at the beginning that things were seen before 1947. For example, we go back to 332 BC and Alexander the Great, iron shields. So we do point out that those are sightings prior to Kenneth Arnold, but that's when the phrase, flying saucers became into popular culture. Yeah. That was with Kenneth Arnold. So you've got to start somewhere, and there's no better place than Kenneth. And what I wanted to do with the chapter was have literally designer artwork, and the idea being, if you're a young person getting into this, and I don't know about you, Chris, but when I used to pick up books, first thing I'd do is look on the back cover, and then I would flick through it,
look for the photographs,
look for the pictures, and if the picture attracted my attention, then I'd sink my teeth into it. So there is a nice array of pictures and photographs and things like that, but I wanted each chapter to have its own unique piece of artwork. So whatever the first case was for each chapter, a piece of artwork to go with it. And that's where my friend and colleague, Ronnie Kinsella, came in. I mean, Ronald's renowned for his artwork. And I just thought that, not that he's good at it, but it was just Ronnie's style. And I thought, if I try and take myself back in time, and the things I kind of like, that would have appealed to me, So I asked Ron if he'd like to come on board and produce the artwork. I'm glad he said yes. And hey presto, Introducing UFOs, a young person's guide, was born with text by myself and artwork by Ronnie. You will not find the artwork in this book anywhere else. So the hope is, a young person's looking at it, it sees the artwork, and it inspires them, or it sparks their imagination, and away they go. That's how it all came about, Chris.
Yeah. So are the reports in the book then, are they in-depth investigations, or is it just skipping off, telling the basics of the story?
Yeah, it tells the sort of bullet points, if you like, because some of the cases, if we'd gone into it properly, it would have been a book in its own right. That's why there are certain cases that are not in there, because I didn't think I could do them justice by shrinking them down to 3 or 4 pages. So, and there's a bit of bias in the book because there's a number of cases in there that I've put in simply because I like them, you know, and I'm hopeful that others will write them. There's one or two that, like the Knowles family in Mundrabilla in Australia, I've put in because it's one of those cases, Chris, that's fallen off the rails, and you never hear people talking about it. Plus, another reason for putting things like that in is to show, not in your face, but just to show you that whatever UFOs are, it is international. It doesn't know any borders. And last but of course not least, UFO photographs. There's a photo file of UFO pictures in the middle. What I did, I contacted a number of colleagues in different parts of the world, explained what I'm doing, and I said, which UFO photos do you think are authentic? And they sent me them. And some are not great when you look at them, but they nonetheless think these are authentic. There's the Paul Trent ones, from 1950, whatever. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that. But it's in there. But there's others from Russia, Turkey, parts of Europe that I've never seen myself. But there's a little introduction to the photo file, and it says, "You make up your own mind." Yeah. So that's what the whole book does, really.
So have you included the Tony Dodd image? Is it the Addingham UFO from the UK?
No, that's not in there.
Ah, right. So there you go, folks. There's one to look up for yourselves.
Yeah, and I think we covered that in Outer Limits magazine.
I think we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we've also had the Knowles family and their experience in Outer Limits magazine as well. So Ronnie, when you provided these images, how many different images did you actually provide for the publication?
I think there were about 7 or 8. I think 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I will say about the book, which I love, is like you don't have to go in chronological order. You can just look up a particular what Philip's done. You can look up a particular year, and then you can see the incidents from that time, which I absolutely love. And it's not heavy. It's not heavy at all. This is the sort of book I would have loved to have had when I was younger. And an interesting point you raised about the internet having hundreds of websites, a lot of them can't be trusted. There are some good ones, but with a book, especially by a seasoned researcher, you can trust. So this is a wonderful publication. When I found out Philip's concept of it, I was excited and very honored to illustrate for Philip. And another thing I've learned, Philip has taught me, is that I shouldn't be afraid to have a backdrop. You see, with a lot of my pictures, they're close up, you see. But Philip has given me the confidence to just back off a little bit, with the image. Yeah. So you have the ship and the creatures in there as well, instead of doing them always close up. Because I was afraid of losing detail with them. But Philip taught me a valuable lesson that the detail is still retained. It's the shading, it's the lighting that adds emphasis to it as well. So I'm grateful to Philip for that, because he's not only given me the honor of producing the images for his beautiful book, but also he's taught me a few things as well, about my ideas are not always as acceptable as what other people may come to appreciate. But as a valuable lesson I learned, and it's come out better for it, and Philip's advice through it, I was very honoured to illustrate it.
Absolutely. As you know, guys, I am a photographer, and people often say to me, "Can you do portraits for me, please?" Blah blah blah. And of course I can. Absolutely no problem. And when they're talking of portrait, they usually mean head and shoulders shots. But if you include the full body as part of the portrait, in other words, get them standing in the image, it tells more of a story as well.
That's right. I mean, the lighting I've learned as well from Philip with the illustrations. We must remember that when they made this, I mean, I'm using digital technology to bring the pictures to life, but when the chap made Alien, Sir Ridley Scott, I think that was the gentleman who produced that incredible film. We have to remember that was just a man in a rubber suit with a bit of gel over him. It was the lighting, the brilliant, clever lighting that brought it to life. So with the technology I have now, I'm using the Cintiq Wacom. It is to do with the lighting to try and give the illusion or giving them emphasis. It's wonderful. So yes, you're absolutely right, Chris, about when you do a full shot of someone.
Yeah, I do know that the case histories that have been chosen for the book, I do know they've come from around the world. Which areas of the world, guys, have you actually chosen?
Well, I mean, obviously there's the UK and the USA being the main one, but we have the Iranian jet intercepts. I mean, it's not an area of the world that you would point to as having any kind of UFO significance. I think that happened in 1976. Yeah. So there we've got the Reverend Father Gill sighting from Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
Which I was talking to somebody about it the other night, and they asked me exactly where it was, and I said, well, all I know is it's north of Australia. How far north? I couldn't really tell you, but that's where it is roughly. And of course, when that happened, when that incident took place, 1959, it was how can we put it? Still is. You probably call it a second world sort of location. It was very, very well. It wasn't westernized. Let's put it that way. So there wasn't the influence from the outside of the Western world. And the Reverend Gill went on the record. He spoke in public about it. There's a number of I think one of his colleagues, because he was a clergyman, obviously they were running a missionary there. 20-some people saw the events. They lasted over a few nights, Chris, and I think initially he was informed about it, but he didn't take much notice. Wasn't that really? He wasn't interested that much. But then when he did take a look, it was, oh boy.
Yeah.
And what I found out just literally in these last couple of days, the late Alan Hynek, I think it was either just before or just after he was the consultant on Close Encounters. He got involved in one or two little commercial ventures, nothing out of the ordinary, but one was a double LP, long playing vinyl record, and on there were a number of witnesses and UFO researchers, and one of the witnesses who's on that LP is the Reverend Father Gill. And I've only just found out that this LP ever existed. I think it also came out later on 8-track, and then there was the cassette tapes and things like that. Because I was looking, I saw the article about it, and I was looking to see if he'd got Charlie Hickson on it, but he hadn't. But digressing somewhat, Charlie Hickson of the 1973 Pascagoula case. It's one of the cases I did not put in the book because I've done a lot of work on it and I didn't think I could do it justice. But Charlie Hickson did make a single, a vinyl record, which is 33 1/3 RPM, and it's simply called Charles Hickson, Story of UFO. And I actually have it here. I managed to obtain a copy.
That's interesting.
yeah. So I had the audio from it from our friend Stefanos Panagiotakis.
That's easy for you to say.
There you go. He actually was out to visit Charles Hickson in 1981, and he gave him one of the records and signed the envelope. So Stefanos had that, so he digitized it and sent me that. But I was determined if I saw one go on sale, I was going to have it anyway. We digress. But what I was saying is, the Reverend Father Gill's account was on the LP that Hynek released. So he must have given it some credence in order to use it on that, Chris.
Absolutely. The one thing I love about the Father Gill sighting, for want of a better word, is that there is an interaction there, isn't there, with the occupants of the craft?
That's right. I mean, I did have, believe it or not, don't ask me how I came across it because I can't remember. I did actually have the original case file, including the letters and so on. So I digitized them and I put it into a little booklet, which is on sale on Amazon now. But they got so close they could see, I'll say, beings. And they waved at them and they waved back. and we have one of the actual drawings from the case file. It was the drawings done by the Reverend Norman Crutwell, who was, part of the mission there. I think it was the Reverend Crutwell who wrote to various people about it. So the drawing you see is not one that we've done off that Philip's done. It's actually from the original case file itself, and he was a witness to these events. And it's astonishing. So when I just knew that Ronald's artwork would work perfectly. And the only thing that we're not able to do at the moment is that, of course, all of Ronnie's artwork is in full colour, but the book is in black and white. Simple reason for that is to publish it in colour. The cost of the book goes up 3 times. So it's not a commercial venture to publish it in colour, I'm afraid. But nonetheless, they still look great in black and white.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, as well, is keeping the price down for people to be able to afford it. I mean, we're all going through a bit of a difficult time now financially, aren't we, with COVID? So the better you can keep the price down, the more you're going to sell, which is all the idea, really.
Yeah, and and Ronald had a free hand, did you not, Ronnie?
Yeah, I did. I think they actually look quite nice in black and white. Actually, they look quite appealing. I mean, in the past, as you were saying about books, most of them were black and white. Even the illustrations and photographs inside, but they didn't bother me at all. I don't think they bothered other people. If they look presentable and neat, then I think it's just as credible as you would have colour. On that note, I'm actually colourblind. But the reason for the digital, I'm colourblind.
That explains your suit, mate, like your shirt that you're wearing.
What I mean by that is I'm not fully colourblind, because my wonderful grandfather was colourblind, but I'm partially colourblind. And
Sorry,
what it
Ronnie.
means.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't mind at all. Absolutely, I love it. What it means is that it depends on shades. Like if the green is dark or if the brown is too light, that's why I get mixed up. I can't tell greens, browns, and blues. But the wonderful thing about digital art is that it has a set colour wheel. So I now know where the blues are, the browns, and the greens. So I don't have a problem. I mean, as I said before, I've always said this is absolutely wonderful. It's absolutely true. I once painted a green horse. When we had traditional colours before. I mean, I was around when we didn't even have digital technology. I'm like you guys. I had records, the 33 and 45s and cassette tapes. We didn't have computers in the 70s, in the late 70s. We didn't have what we have today. So, but I saw the potential of this technology, especially ZBrush or ZBrush, and a sculpting application, which when I saw it, I mean, it's not cheating. This is a mistake I made. I used to say myself, I'm guilty as hell of saying that, it's cheating. But when they sent me this introduction package, Sculptress or something, and I started sculpting, it's basically like using plasticine. You're just using your mouse to manipulate it and cut it and stretch it and bend it. But with ZBrush, it's much more advanced than that. And when I saw the potential of this, along with the color wheel, well, my goodness, that really propelled me. But when I had it, you see, this is the one thing that troubled me. I didn't have a direction with it. And meeting you guys has given me direction and focus. What better way to do art than to do creatures and ships and illustrating people's encounters? The Father Jill, is it Father, the one with the ship where the occupants were waving at him? I've forgotten his name again, sorry.
Yeah, Reverend Gill.
Now, I remember that case from a long time ago. I remembered a book. They had an illustration in there of the ship, and the occupants are waving at the gentleman. I didn't know much about it then. I mean, I wasn't interested in the UFOs then, because of what happened to me. I blocked it out. I didn't want to know. It's only when you mature later on in life that you come to it's like Sherlock Holmes. You want to know what happened, so you begin to sniff about, and then it gets deeper and deeper. It's rather like opening Pandora's box, isn't it? You've opened Pandora's box, or you've been down the rabbit hole. So curiosity killed the cat, but in my case, it hasn't yet. So, but this is the describing the digital technology for Philip's book as well has been an absolute, and for Outer Limits magazine, your magazine, Chris, which is absolutely beautiful, by the way, I must add.
Thank you.
So informative. It doesn't beat about the bush. It just gets straight to the point. So this technology has enabled me to try and portray visions as best I can.
Okay, so as we know, the book is designed with a young adolescent audience in mind, and we know we've got the photo section and images, etc., etc. What other advice does it give, please, folks? Is there any information on joining groups or any information on joining national societies or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, originally, Chris, it was going to have an address list in the back of various UFO groups, all of which are now, as far as I'm aware, gone. So, it does still make reference to, if need be, find a local UFO group, because they rise and fall. Mm-hmm. You were part of a local group in Hull.
That's correct, Chris. Yeah. I actually set up the Hull UFO Society back in the mid-1990s.
Yeah, and I was part of the British UFO Research Association, which is still going, just about, but it's no longer a membership organisation like it used to be. So I've recommended that. And that others will rise and fall. What we also have done, because I've heard it as an investigator in the subject, how many times have people said, "Oh, I had my camera with me, but I never thought to use it," or "I had my binoculars," or whatever. So there's a little section that gives you tips on what to do if you have your own sighting. Mm-hmm. In other words, most teenagers have a digital device of some description in their back pocket. Their mobile. Mm-hmm. Use it. I know it's not the greatest thing, but use it. If you've got binoculars to hand, use them. Another tip is note down the date and the time and the location.
That's quite interesting, though, isn't it, Phil? Because one of the things, we say use your camera, use your phone, use your binoculars, but usually people seem to be overcome by what they're looking at, and most of them tend to forget to do that. Do you have any explanation of that at all?
I don't have an explanation, because all I know what I saw was just some strange lights. My first reaction was to grab my camera. I just didn't have one. I used to carry a camera in my car all the time, but my car got stolen, so everything inside it was pinched. I got the car back and I replaced my camera and everything, but I didn't leave it in the car anymore. So, and the date and the time and the location is important, because you might not get the report straight away. I remember one chap writing to me, and he didn't live that far away, and I thought, I think I know what this is. And he filled in this report form, drew this beautiful picture of the flying saucer with all the lights on it. So I said, "Look, have you seen this before?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, if you see it again, phone me. I don't care what time it is, phone me." Anyway, he rung me at, I don't know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I jumped in the car, went to his house, and we went into the back garden, and there it was, and it was the planet Venus. And it was the date and the time and the location that gave me an idea. And I said to him, "Well, you really are seeing something from outer space, but it's the planet Venus." And as I walked back in the house and through his living room, he had a UFO book on his coffee table, and it sounded to me like, this guy was an educated guy. Sounded to me like he's read his first UFO book, looked out the back window, and there's Venus, and hey presto. So little things like that. If you're seeing something and there's somebody standing nearby, draw their attention to it as well, because the more witnesses, the better. And then sort of round things off with some ideas of what UFOs may or may not be. Like I said, the book's not there to indoctrinate anyone. So we're saying we're going to give you 3 theories, but there are many more. One theory is the most popular, of course, that they're not from this earth. 2, that we're looking at secret military technology. And not 3, but it is some kind of rare natural phenomena, as yet, not fully understood by science. But those are just 3 that we point out. There's lots of other ideas. But the whole point of the book is make up your own mind. Here's the hints and tips. Here's some ideas of the cases that's been happening down the decades. And one of the reasons I put, there's one item in there that's not a case, it's a project, and it's Project Hessdalen in Norway. Hessdalen is in central Norway, Chris. It's surrounded by 3 mountains. I'll never be able to pronounce the names of them in a million years. There's only a couple of hundred people live in the area. And in the early 1980s, they started to see these strange lights down below the horizon. And so eventually UFO Norway and UFO Sweden set up a monitoring station in the Hessdalen Valley in the winter in a caravan. And they begged, stole and borrowed a whole host of equipment. They managed to catch these lights on film. So in the 80s, even Alan Hynek went there. I think it was his last field trip. So in the book, there is pictures of Hynek, in Hessdalen. And it's still going to this day. But now they have a 24-hour, purpose-built monitoring station. And you can go and log on at any time you like. It's also taught in the high school there, and in the summer months you have school visits to the area. I went in about 1988, somewhere around there. In the winter, there was a lot of snow and it was very cold. I'll give you an idea, Chris. We're driving up to Hessdalen with my friend Odd Gunnar Road. He was part of the original Project Hessdalen, part of UFO Norway. That's how I met him, and we've been friends ever since. And as we're driving down the road, I could see these poles sticking up every now and again. There's a pole, and I couldn't figure it out. I said, "What the hell are they for?" And he says, "That's for when it really snows, because that's the only way they can find the road."
Oh, dear.
And I have a signpost pointing to Hessdalen. It's a proper signpost. And all you can see is the sign sticking out of the top of the snow. So there's, 5 or 6 feet of snow there. And he says, but when it snows properly, and I'm thinking, oh, fire. What's this then?
Dear me. I love the snow, and I'm very disappointed we didn't add any so far this year.
So I put Project Hessdalen into introducing UFOs.
Excellent.
Because there will be, young people who have got a scientific bent and don't necessarily want to go and investigate UFO sightings, but might want to have a scientific approach. Well, there's an example of what ufology can do. People, ufology gets a bad reputation at times, but you have to remember that Project Hessdalen was started by 2 UFO groups. And it's ended up with they've had teams of scientists there, Chris, from all over the world trying to figure it out. The founder of it, Erling Strand, is still involved, and he's spoken and lectured about it all around the world, trying to figure it out. But that's in the book as well.
Well, the beauty of this book then, Phil, is it could encourage a new generation, to coin a phrase from a certain TV show, of the next investigators, either scientific investigators or just investigators of the phenomena itself, or it could point people in the direction to go.
Yeah. I mean, what I've tried to illustrate, and I don't mean Ronald's illustrations, is that whatever you want, if you want to get involved in this subject, there is something there for everyone.
Excellent.
Be it an investigator, be it a researcher, be it a scientist, you name it, there's something there for anybody.
Well, we have a responsibility, don't we, to some extent, to encourage more new and younger blood to come into the subject and get involved.
Well, that's the reason for doing the book in the first place.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be around forever, and it's another reason why I wanted Ronald's artwork in it is to, I mean, if you look at Kenneth Arnold's illustration, it's on page 6. This is one done by Ronnie. I've never seen Kenneth Arnold's illustration like that, and I just think it's, spot on. It fires your imagination. My favourite, and I've told Ronald this, my favourite illustration, and I just wish we could see it here in colour, is on page 24. It starts off the sightings in the 1950s, and of course it's the the UFOs seen over Washington, D.C. in 1952, captured on radar and so on. And Ronald's done an amazing illustration of that. And I've even got it on my own T-shirt. That's how much I liked. How did you go about, Ronnie, when you were thinking of doing the illustrations?
Just before you answer that, Ronnie, I wanted to ask it really. You can include this with the answer to Philip, I suppose. Which is your favourite image and why?
Actually, it is the Washington flyover.
Well, there you go.
Because
that was perceptive.
I think that was a monumental incident. I mean, of course, I wasn't around them, but when you read about it, you knew they were not of this earth. They weren't anomalies. It wasn't Russian. They were defying every kind of science we could imagine. And the stir they caused. And do you know what humors me? What really humors me is the lengths the government went to try and subdue it, to try and completely cancel it out. Oh, it's not flying saucers. But you see, this is the what's the word? The Holy Grail, not Roswell as such, but this was the Holy Grail that actually tipped the scales of the government because they realized they had no control over suppression with this. They couldn't suppress it. So these things were demonstrating to them that, look, we're here. We can do what we want. What are you going to do about it? So I think that picture, as Philip, I know which is his favourite, the Washington flyover. I thought that's one of my favourites actually because it's a fleet of them, and in a funny kind of way, it reminds me of Mars attacks. When they begin to come in for the invasion. Not that they did, but it's a beautiful. I could imagine. I've just wished I was there to have seen it. The people were privileged to have seen them passing over the Capitol. So.
That's excellent. So, how and where can we get a copy?
Yeah, easy, Chris. Amazon. Simple as that. Introducing UFOs is on Amazon. It's an 8 by 10 inch. Don't ask me what that is in centimeters, guys. I have no idea. But it's a large format book on Amazon, or you can download it as a Kindle or to whatever device you want. It's available in both, and you can find out more about it on flyingdiscpress.com. Simple as that.
Excellent. So, we were discussing off air some quite interesting news with Ronnie and Philip earlier on. And by Philip I mean Philip Kinsella. Do you want to tell us about that, Ronnie?
Yes, we've been invited to the Laughlin UFO convention in Nevada in June of this year. And that's an incredible honor, and it's all thanks to Philip Mantle. It's gentlemen, both of you, I must say, and I'm going to tell the listeners that you have both been an inspiration to both Philip and myself, my brother, and you've helped us out. Not only has Philip given me the opportunity to get my art out there, firstly with Calvin Parker, and secondly with his beautiful book, certainly with your Outer Limits magazine, which is fantastic, absolutely beautifully produced, both of them informative. You see, this is a thing about this subject. We know it's vexed. We certainly know that it's full of controversy, but it's such a shining example of having researchers as both yourselves to document this and to come out with this in a professional manner and to tell people that there is something here. We are being visited by things we don't yet understand, but which are a reality. And this is attributed to both yourselves for actually bringing this to the foreground and educating people on it. You see, the book, when you were talking about the size of the book as well, Philip's book, Introducing UFOs, I love the size of it. We always think of books as being like your traditional paperback size, the pocketbook size many years ago. Mm-hmm. I think the idea of technology now is making them bigger is absolutely wonderful. And kids, even kids will love it. And as Philip said, it is not indoctrinating people at all. Absolutely far from it. It's make up your own mind. This is what happened. This is the truth. You decide.
Excellent. So, can I just say, you've mentioned the magazine there, Ronnie, but
yeah,
I'm extremely grateful for the images that you have provided for the front cover and other places in the magazine over the last about 2 or 3 years now, I think it is, if we go back. So, thank you very much for providing that for us. I wanted to ask, what are you going to be talking about?
Well, I'm going to be talking about my own encounter and also about the impact the UFO and alien paradox has had upon people. I'm very interested in the psychology of it and actually where we can assume these things come from and what their agenda is. Now, I don't know. No one's going to know that. I mean, if they do, we might as well dig a hole and bury themselves in it because no one actually knows. I think some factions are wiser to it. I'm talking about the military. If they're covering it over a clandestine, it might be beneficial to us because it could be ugly. We don't know. I have my own opinions, but it will be basically about the digital demon, my book that Philip Mantle is publishing on the 1st of March, along with the other wonderful book he mentioned. But it will be an investigation into them. And there are some interesting parallels regarding Roswell in there too, if it did occur. I know it's alleged. We can't say for certain. I believe it did happen. It would be, as Philip did. I love the words he used, the Holy Grail. A while ago, I remembered Philip stating that the Holy Grail of ufology, it begins with that, and of course with the help of Stanton Friedman, the late, bless him, Stanton Friedman. But it will be an investigation into these things, and it's basically biographical, but looking more into the agenda and dismissing some of what I believe to be hogwash. We will never mention names. I'll never do that. I'm never disrespectful to anyone if I can help it, and I don't mention names. The hogwash that we've been met with as well with this subject, and there's plenty of that. I think you gentlemen can agree with me on that.
Yep, absolutely. So, when is this? I know, is it June this year?
I believe it's June the 6th at the moment. I think it is. I think I remembered it was June the 6th. So, and it's in I've never been to America. I mean, I'm so excited to be travelling there.
It's great, Philip. I lectured there some years back at Laughlin, Nevada. They may well have a different hotel. So everything is centred in the hotel, so you don't have to go wandering off. The conference is in the hotel. They have a big room for all the vendors and things like that. Then on an evening, they have other little events going off. They did have, when I was there, meet the speakers cocktail evening. So there was one speaker on a big round table, on each table, and people had paid to come and sit and have a cocktail with them and have a chat, which I found fascinating because you meet some amazing people, and I actually preferred that, to be honest. So Laughlin, for those that are not aware, is about 80 miles from Las Vegas. Yeah. So if you want to go to Las Vegas, you can do it. But in Laughlin, they all gamble, so Ronald. So if you want to go and put some money, I did. I didn't win anything, but I just put a few dollars in to say I'd had a go. And same, we on the way back, we stayed in Las Vegas for a night, and it's a great place to look around. You don't have to spend a penny, apart from your hotel. And you can outside the Bellagio, and the opera will start, and the fountains dance and light up to the opera, and you can just stand there and watch it. You don't have to go in, but there's all kinds of things to do. You can go out to the Hoover Dam. You obviously need a car and things like that, but you'll have a great time. The organizer, Bob Brown, is a lovely guy, and I'll give you an example of what happened when we were there. I went with the late Graham Birdsall, and Graham used to go every year, and we had a stall together. He was selling, obviously UFO magazine, and I was selling books. And a chap walked up, and he's walking around, and he started chatting to Graham. And because Graham could talk, and they were at it for ages. And this gentleman had come to Laughlin, not for the UFO convention. There was a company just over the road from where the hotel was that sold what they call RVs, recreational vehicles, caravans, but mobile homes. And he'd come to buy one of them. And outside the hotel was a huge inflatable alien. So he thought, looks interesting. And in he comes. And it was Travis Walton's brother.
Oh, crikey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was Travis Walton's brother. And I said to Graham, because he had Russell Callahan with him and all the, cameras and all this lot, I said, get an interview with him. And by the time he'd turned around, he'd gone. But Graham spoke to him for about an hour or two. So that's the kind of things that happens at these places.
Yes.
But you will have a great time. You will. Like I said, make the best of it while you're there.
Yes.
Myself and Russ and Graham were talking about going back, and what we were going to do. We were going to hire a car. Well, Graham hired a car anyway, and we were going to go out to Area 51.
Yeah.
And places, because you can do like a round trip out to Area 51 and go to Rachel, Nevada. It's a bit like a cowboy town, and the little alien inn. And you can do like a circular route. Will take you all day. Don't get me wrong, but you can do it.
Yeah.
And what was funny is at the back of the hotel, if there was the Colorado River, and of course on the Colorado River is London Bridge.
Mm.
That's where it is. It was some miles away, and of course if you go over the river, I believe you had to change your watch because it was a different time zone.
Crikey, that's really weird. I'm looking so forward to it. I'm all for it. I'm just so excited, to visit the United States is an honor, really. I've always wanted to step on American soil, so I'm looking so forward to that, absolutely, and to meet the people there as well. It's going to be wonderful to meet the new people and to chat with them and learn some things from them. This subject, as we know, it's so fragmented, it's so diverse. But the more, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. When you put the pieces together slowly, you might form a picture of some kind. But I'm forming a little picture in my head. But to meet these other researchers and learn from them, and to understand their viewpoints and to digest their material would be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I also look at it in the other way, Ronald, get them to learn from you as well.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah, I think I'm so grateful, and also to the Outer Limits convention coming up in September, which I'm so looking forward to attending that, because it's like meeting old friends again that I've met up from the last one.
You can turn up in September if you want, Ronald, but it's actually in August.
Oh, I would have been too early, my goodness. Oh, I'll tell you, this year has been horrendous. Well, just to see the back end of this darkness, and to just get back on track and get back to work and get on meeting people would be absolutely wonderful. Yeah, the August, sorry about that.
It's okay, it's not a problem, don't worry.
In August, yeah, I'm looking so forward to that, to meeting the old friends and to seeing. And Paul, I believe Paul Sinclair's attending that.
Yes,
as well,
he is. He's actually
Excellent.
giving a talk. It was one of the surprise guests, but I've made it public anyway now. So We've
wonderful,
also got another
absolutely.
gentleman by the name of Colin Saunders, who will be discussing his experience with a flying triangle sighting, I think back in the 1990s. I can't remember the exact year.
I've heard of him. Colin Saunders, I've heard of him, yes. So I'm looking forward to that, absolutely. And to meet you both again as well, to actually be with you both.
Well, if you see him, Philip, if you see him first, let me know so I can get hidden.
I met a guy at the Laughlin conference when we were there. He's called Bill, and we went down, my wife and I, to the bar at cocktail hour. She wanted a cocktail, and this gentleman just said, "Can I pay for that, Mr. Mantle?" And I'm still in touch with him now. We still exchange the occasional email. He was actually what was in. It's when if you go to Las Vegas, it's like no city on earth, because when you drive down to it, it looks like somebody's built a city and thought, where can I stick it? That'll do. And it is in the middle of nowhere. And he was, when we went up to Caesar's Palace, the hotel, you see the limousines just coming and going. Well, Bill was actually a mechanic for one of the limo companies. And I remember him sending me a picture of a huge, great motorbike. It was enormous. And I said, "Are you not going to grow up?" And he said, "Nope."
Caesar's Palace, I went there. It was in Luton many years ago. Caesar's Palace, not the Grand Caesar's Palace.
Well, I don't know what it's like now, but when you went inside,
Luton hadn't changed, Phil.
Yeah. As you were walking down a part of it, the ceiling was actually painted as if it was the sky. And then at one end, they had these animatronics that all came to life. It was all, Roman. I don't know who the hell it's for. I don't know whether it was Caesar or what. But then all the sky changed, and it went from daylight to the night skies. If you were looking up at the stars, and you would have thought there was no roof on it. It was very, very well done.
Yeah,
it was very well done. But you'll have a great time. And what is interesting from a UFO point of view is how different the conferences are in the States compared to here. I'm not saying they're any better or any worse. All I will say is that they are very, very different, and that hasn't changed. So all I can say, Ronald, and to your brother Philip, is enjoy it, make the best of it, because who knows, you might not be there again.
Well, all I'm going to say is it's well deserved for both of you. Get out there, enjoy it. Don't get to the point many years later in life where you sat in a wheelchair wishing you'd done something. Get out there and enjoy it.
Yes, thank you. Both,
so
thank you. That's
what I'm going to do now, I want to talk a little bit about your new book, Digital Demon: Countdown to Disaster. But this isn't the first publication you've actually written, is it, Ronald? I mean, you've got the Archons, Eye Grey.
Yeah.
You've got the Rock Bottom Twins, and you've got 2 or 3 of those. You can tell us about those as well. The Ungodly Agenda, Twin Souls, and Magnus, was it Micro-Mutt and the Space God or something?
That's right, yeah.
Go on, tell us about those.
Yeah, the children's books, the Rock Bottom Twins, I was so desperate for an idea many years ago when I was learning to write, because I was being rejected left, right and centre. And I will tell you now, I don't mind telling you, I have a filing cabinet of my own, and Philip and I have over 700 rejection letters over a 20-year span. We were absolutely prolific, and 63 publishers turned down the Rock Bottom Twins. The last one took it. But it was a limited availability. The agreement was it wasn't going to be enormously distributed. It was limited, but I thought beggars can't be choosers. So basically, the Rock Bottom Twins, people immediately think they're children. They're not. I base them on me and Philip. This will make you laugh. They're grumpy old men. They're lazy. They're retired. They don't want to work. There's a job that comes up, so they're good with electronics. So they think, we'll take the job. It's a cleaning job in this manor owned by this miserable old biddy. And they tell her they take it because she's going on holiday. So they build a robot. Well, they don't build him. They hustle him up. They just conjure him, and he's rushed. And when she's gone, she pays them in advance. She wants it all clean. She'll inspect it. They put him in there to clean it and leave him and spend the money on booze and cakes and it's hilarious. And while they're enjoying themselves, he's trashing the manor. So the idea was seeded for that. But oh my God, it was such an absolute nightmare to get published. Those books, 63 publishers turned them down. I even tried the United States, which is fair enough because our humor is different from theirs. I appreciate that. I get that. I learned that. But I've reissued them on Amazon. They've been revised. And the Magnus the Micro-Mutt dog is a space dog. I thought kids might like him. Philip and I decided to create him. He was first conceived as comic strips. I did send him to, I think, the Daily Mail or the papers to see if they would take, sort of like a Snoopy thing, but a mechanical dog who's mischievous. But he was turned down. So I left him for years, and then we produced this book based on him with a princess, and they go on an adventure. It's sort of like a Tomb Raider thing. But the Archons... ironically borders on the Digital Demon, which Philip is publishing, because it's to do with the darker aspect. The Archons is science fiction, of course. It's an adult book, and it's not very pleasant. It's quite evil what they're planning to do. They're demonic. But this gave rise to the Digital Demon because I thought about the alien menace or the alien presence, whatever we wish to call it. And from my perspective, I don't see any good coming from it at the moment. I'm not tainting everything with the same brush. It's just my own views on the certain things that I have experienced. So the Digital Demon, and what I love about that book, and I'm so grateful to Philip for giving me the chance to publish this manuscript, is the fact that it's autobiographical. It was very hard writing about the past because I had to go back. And, I will tell you, my childhood was so magical in some ways. There was some horrors. They are in the book. Philip knows all about this. But there were magical times with my grandparents, my mother, and my brother. And I've tried to reconstruct, as I call it, the ashes of the past. And when you go back, I've tried to encapsulate the essence of how I felt, of what the time was in the 80s or late 70s. I know it sounds odd to say that to you guys. Respectfully, you are both respectfully older than myself, but it was important for the time. And going back was very hard. In fact, it was quite emotional. But I'm glad I captured that for the book. So it begins with my childhood. The way I am and Philip, there's a lot of fun in there as well, and then so that you could build up your characters, so people understand exactly who's narrating to them, and then it goes on to the alien subject. Now, I'm not saying I'm right. I may well be wrong, but it is only a hypothesis based on the experiences I've had and also my own personal research. I won't call myself a hardcore researcher. I never have. I would say it's a light researcher. Of course, as I said, when you've been down the rabbit hole, you're not going to leave it. You can't. It's like Pandora's box has been opened and you want to investigate. Now, the reason why I didn't write this earlier in my life is because no one believed, in the 80s you couldn't discuss even mediums, let alone UFOs. They told you to shut up. I mean, it's all right for Close Encounters to come out. Everyone loved it. By the way, I loved that film, but I thought the ending was just a little bit too patriotic. No disrespect to the brilliant Steven Spielberg. I just felt the ending was just too patriotic. But they didn't mind them. But any mention of seeing one, that's it. It's a closed book. But so it's taken me a long time to come forward with the encounter I had, the solo encounter with them. And then to progress from there on to the UFOs. I had great joy writing the digital, and of course with Philip Mantle's help as well. He helped me. He's polished it, and he's corrected me on certain things, which is wonderful. So I'm looking so forward to that coming out, and that comes out, she said, on the 1st of March.
So you actually mentioned that the agenda that these creatures, visitors, ETs, Greys, whatever you want to call them, have. Do you want to expand on that a little bit, or do you want to leave that for people to read in the book?
If you don't mind, I'm going to leave that for them to read in the book.
That's
and
fine.
Some people will say, that's a selling gimmick. He just wants to sell it. But of course I do. Of course, this is the thing about people who criticize. This is one thing that needs to be cleared up with the people who say they're just in it for the money. Well, not being funny, but even footballers get paid fantastic amounts of money to kick a ball around. Now, that is a fantastic sport, and I have nothing against it. But immediately, if you mention anything to do with the alternative science or the alternative incidents on the Earth, like UFOs or spiritual matters, immediately they say, you're in it for the money. Well, no, because the authors usually don't get much money at all from their books and have to spend a lot of money. As Philip Mantle, I remembered him stating quite correctly, they have to spend a lot of money traveling to places with petrol to attend these groups to actually promote their work and get the message across. So, this is the thing that they must understand. As I said, when you've seen them, when they're above your head, and they were above our heads, they were there. They were not kites, probes, drones, flags, whatever you want to call they'll come up with anything. Venus, they were not. When you see the machines themselves above your heads, you damn well know that we are actually being visited by something so incredible and so different. It is not military. It is not military. I've covered this in my book. Perhaps some cases in the past, perhaps they were mistaken. Some of their engineering technologies were mistaken for exotic aircraft, but these were nothing of the sort. So, and also in question to the agenda, I don't exactly know that, but I do come out with a hypothesis in the book.
Yeah, I've had a few people say, UFO books, you shouldn't be charging for them. And I'm thinking, well, if it's a cookery book, you still got to pay for it. They don't give, I don't see Nigella standing on a street corner giving books away to everybody that walks past.
I like that. Yeah.
It's a commercial venture. But with some of the books that I publish, you've no idea whether they're going to sell or not. You take that chance. There's a bit of money goes into getting them ready for publication to begin with. But like you said, Ronald, from a research point of view, I used to tell my ex-wife, as she is now, I'm remarried now, but I used to tell her fibs. Because
don't admit that on here, Phil. She'll be coming back at you.
I don't care. She got everything in the divorce anyway, Chris. And I used to have a kit bag all ready, and it was a notepad, a couple of pens, pencil, tape recorder, cameras, and what have you. And I used to just throw that in the back of the car, bottle of pop, and off. gone. What time will we be home, darling? don't ask me that. You know, I've no idea.
Well, how I explain it is, I mean, as you both know, Outer Limits magazine actually began as a free publication, no subscribers, and I did that up to issue, I think it was issue 16, and then I made it a subscription-only publication, which is actually it's better, you know, and it means it goes to people who are really interested in the subject, that they're willing to pay for something that you've actually devoted a lot of time to, a lot of research yourself, you know, talking with people, making phone calls, you know, even doing this, interviewing people on the show here, so that we can publicise events, we can publicise new books. It all comes, you know, the internet isn't free, you've got to pay for it. So to actually charge for something, in my opinion, isn't wrong, because it covers costs. I mean, putting conferences on cost as well, so, you know.
That's right.
I've done that as well, Chris, and I actually think editing a magazine is more difficult than writing a book, because you can take the time with the book, and once it's done. But once you've done one, you know, edition of the magazine, you then on to the next. Or sometimes you may work 2 or 3 in advance, and you're out. Sometimes you're thinking, oh, I need something on this, and I don't have it. So, you know, I have no problem with a charge for it. I can't understand these idiots who think you should just give it all away for nothing.
Yes, I think that's just a ploy to denounce the subject completely. That's all they're doing. But with your magazine as well, the Outer Limits magazine, Chris, it's also, how do you remember what you've printed? I mean, you have so many cases coming through. I've always wondered, how is it you don't repeat an incident? It's very clever you don't, but you seem to, it's like it's in some kind of order. I would have a headache trying to keep up with the amount of correspondences you have to deal with, the pictures you have to manipulate, the wording and typing you have to edit. People must understand this, because it's absolutely amazing what you do with this beautiful magazine. It's a lot of work. You're right, absolutely. A lot of your time, and Philip's as well with his publishing company.
Well, basically, I just have, I can remember what is in various issues, but if I don't remember, you know, what is in, I will go back through several issues and have a look at what went in and what was what was presented at the time. Also, I do occasionally do what I call a rerun, which is, if it's an interesting case, I will sometimes reuse that case and put it back into another issue further down the line. But you know, it's each issue that I put together, I'm looking for information to, like we've all said, to inform people. You know, and I mean, for example, you know, are you aware that in Scotland last year there were 33 actual UFO reports that were quite interesting? And that is for a full year, Scotland's UFOs 2020. That's in the 1st of February issue. That's going out in a couple of weeks. Some very nice pictures as well of various bits and bobs. You know, got a lovely image of a UFO, which is it's 3 lights in the air. You know, similar to one we've discussed before. You know, 3 lights in the air over Glasgow and the stationary. So very interesting, very interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
There's Nicola Sturgeon keeping an eye on them all, just making sure they're not breaking the COVID regulations. I'm telling you what it was. You know.
There's actually a sign under it. It says it's Scotsit. So he wants to leave Scotsit. You know, in Brexit, it's Scotsit. She wants to leave the United Kingdom.
but going back to you going out to Laughlin, Ronald. All I would say to you is, don't think that you're an underdog in some respects, you know, and that you must, you must respect the others that are there, which is fine, but don't think you're anything less than them. You are there by right, and
exactly.
How it came about, I told you, the organizer sent me an email, and I told him straight out, I can't travel anymore, unfortunately. And it was just so that yours and your brother Philip's books were coming out at the beginning of this year. Philip's is already out. So I sent him both books, and it's just out. I don't just out of the cards fell. He read Philip's book first, and said I'd like to invite him. So I plugged for both of you, and I had a laugh with him. I said, you can't tell them apart anyway. So, if one of them gets drunk, the other one can fill in. You won't know the difference.
Oh, I could fill in for Philip, I think.
And then once he read your book as well, I didn't send them digitally. I actually sent him hard copies.
Right.
And the only question was, would you share a room? I said, well, they live together. I don't think there's any problem with it. I did ask you. I have to ask.
You did. Yeah, Philip and I, being twins, we share rooms. We've always shared rooms in hotels and things. It's just something we just do. We don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and he said, fine. Have you got Ronald's contact details? And I think he sent the invites within hours that same day.
Very quick, yes.
Don't think that you don't deserve to be there, because he hasn't just gone on my recommendation. He's actually read both of your books in full. And it is the content of those books that's got you the invite. Yeah, I can send books all over. I mean, I've sent you books to various places. Sometimes they fall on deaf ears. Other times you have success. So don't think you don't deserve to be there, because you both have fascinating stories in your own right to tell. And I think, and I honestly meant this. I said, these are two English gentlemen. And I think your audience will love, both personality-wise and what they have to say. And that's why I decided to publish both books as well. I had a number of manuscripts,
yes.
And I didn't just accept yours because the artwork for introducing UFOs. So, you're in the league, Ronald, and don't think you're not.
Very kind. You're both extremely professional gentlemen anyway, and I do mean that. And you are one of I'm going to say this, you're one of the best publishers. It's an invite to a conference, because you're so meticulous with the way you deal with books. You're very meticulous with it, because you know what you're looking for, especially with the illustrations. I appreciate that, because I've learned a few things from you as well. Well, you're both my mentors, so, I look up to you both, and you're teaching me things. Perhaps I might be the next one to turn spearhead, take over the mantle, as it were, in the future when I'm old, about 80, to carry the torch.
Carry the torch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've carried the torch that long, it's burnt my fingers.
Oh, dear me.
But I remember when I went in Laughlin, I met a gentleman I wanted to meet, which was Jim Mars.
Oh, yes.
And Jim was a great raconteur. I mean, he had stories about everything. We had a speakers-only dinner one night, so it was just the speakers were all, and you just give him a microphone and he was away telling you stories about everything. But when he got up on the stage to do his presentation, I felt a bit let down. I didn't quite grasp what he was trying to do. But nonetheless, it was great to meet the chap. Yeah. And you will meet some fascinating people. I have to tell you this story because I mentioned it. We had the cocktail evening, meet the speakers cocktail evening. So you sat at a round table, you have your drink, and people have paid to come and sit with you and chat with you. And I had my wife Sue with me, my ex-wife. And one gentleman, I can't remember his name, but it was a lovely guy, but, how can I say it? He was a bit eccentric, so I just made things up. And my wife's kicking my shins under the table, But we had a great time. We were falling about laughing. And but you have some of the speakers from the UK, none who were coming to Hull. I shan't mention their names, but they didn't actually like mingling with Joe Public. So I'm the opposite. I loved it, and it's one of the things that's come across at Chris's conferences is how relaxed and how friendly they are. Yes. There's no egos. There's no look at me, I'm great and you're not. And that will be the same this August, irrespective of who turns up. So, but don't let anybody look down on you, Philip. Ronald, you and Philip, you're there because of your work you've done in your books, and there you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really lovely for the both of you.
What are you working on now?
Nothing at the moment, Chris. We're having our house renovated, so I've had not a chance to do anything at the moment. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to be working on more artwork for you gents. As soon as I get when the house is finished, we've got another week, I think, and it's done. And I don't know. I'll see. I'll let fate blow me where she feels fit. I think that's nicely put.
And
I'm working on all sorts, Chris. All
yeah, I was
sorts.
going to ask you that, Phil.
One of the speakers at your conference, another one of the speakers, Paul Ascuff.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's an old friend of mine. He's revised his book.
Excellent.
So I'll be publishing that later this year. So I've edited it, got the cover done. That's all ready to go. Dr. Irina Scott, who has helped us enormously with Calvin Parker and the Pascagoula case. Irina's written a book called Beyond Pascagoula. So it's not necessarily about Calvin, although she tells Calvin's story in brief, challenging Calvin's story to begin with. But there's a number of other first-hand eyewitnesses that have stepped forward. And believe it or not, this is the case, although she didn't realise it at the time, that got Irina involved in the subject. I mean, she was studying for a PhD at the time, back on October the 11th, 1973. So she was away from home, and her mum was, I don't know, hundreds of miles away in Ohio, and she phoned her. Her mum phoned her and said, "We've just heard this huge sonic boom." I mean, amazing. They were used to sonic booms because they lived near the Air Force Base. But this was nothing like that. And when Irina looked into it, it was heard halfway across the United States on October the 11th, 1973, same night of Charlie and Calvin's close encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of other things happened just before and just after it as well. There was a huge wave of sightings. So she's donned her UFO investigator's cap for the sort of the first half, 3/4 of the book, with new witnesses from here, there, and everywhere. And then for the remainder of the book, she's donned her scientist's cap, which is what she is, and it's her investigation into this huge blast, this huge sonic boom. And I won't tell you what conclusion she comes up with, but it is fascinating. And so I've been editing that. I've literally sent the manuscript complete with all the illustrations and photos to Irina today. And just before we started recording this, there's in my inbox, I haven't read it yet, is another interview that Irina's done with some eyewitnesses out there. So I haven't had a chance to read it yet. So and on it goes, Chris. It's obviously we've got other books coming out. We've got Rolls on March the 1st, Digital Demon. The gentleman called Trey Hudson, or James Trey Hudson. Mm-hmm. Book of his will be coming out again the same day as Ronald's, and that's called the Meadow Project. It's a different place, but it's a similar location to the Skinwalker Ranch. Trey is a former military man, special ops, all this kind of stuff. He has a small team who've investigated this area, and it has everything in it. UFOs, missing time, cryptids, the whole lot. And he won't say where it is because he doesn't want other people descending on it. Mm. And I have to say, I can say now, Trey will also be speaking in Laughlin at the same time as the Kinsella brothers are coming to town. So that's all done. So there's other things. Well, I've got I can't remember the name of it, but I have a manuscript from a colleague in Malaysia, and his is a more skeptical look at the UFO subject, and that's literally gone off to be proofread today as we speak. In the past, I've also published 2 books by Italy's leading UFO researcher, Roberto Pinotti,
who we've interviewed.
Yeah, and I have a 3rd manuscript from Mr. Pinotti, or Dr. Pinotti, you should call him really. And again, I've been editing that. That's gone to him for his for his perusal to see if it's okay. So there's lots of things happening, Chris. We've also, I think I've mentioned it before, we have signed an agreement, a contract to make a documentary series about the Pascagoula case. The only thing that stopped it, of course, is COVID. And on, and on we go. I'll have my own book out later this year as well. I haven't got a date for that yet. That's UFO Landings UK. And whatever else comes my way.
Well, I can say the Meadow Project, which is Trey's book, it is fantastic. I was very grateful to receive a bit of an advanced copy of that. And I can't remember if it's this issue or the last issue, the Christmas issue, December 2020, where I did a small write-up about it, Phil, and it is a fascinating book. It really is.
Well, just to give you an idea, Calvin Parker signed an agreement with a producer in California to write a screenplay about his encounter, him and Charlie. So we have the draft of that. He's editing it. What the producer is doing now, he's writing it as well. He's also preparing it as a 6-part TV drama series. So, and once he's ready, you will have the options. You can buy the film rights or the TV rights or both. And I just as a matter of course, Chris, I let him know about everything that's coming out. And he actually bought the rights to the Meadow Project before I'd finished editing it. So he has the film, the TV, all what we call the electronic rights. He's bought the lot. Whereas with Calvin, he only optioned the drama rights. That's what enabled us to go to a separate company for the documentary rights. So that's how influenced he was. He spoke to Trey on the phone. He brought in a friend of his to work on it as well. So the film rights have been sold for that as well. Excellent.
That's excellent. I think we can say, with all the work that is still going on, that involves this phenomena, the subject itself, all the different paranormal aspects, that these subjects are certainly not disappearing, and introducing UFOs, a young person's guide, will be a good starting point for people who want to get involved in the subject. So just remind us again, please, Phil, how can we get introducing UFOs?
Yeah, it's quite simple. It's on Amazon. It's available as a paperback. Like I say, it's large format. So in old money, it's 8 by 10 inches, or it's available in a Kindle, so you can download it to your mobile phone, your Kindle e-reader, or your laptop, whatever way you want. And it's available around the world. It's also available in Spanish. Forgot to mention that. So you can get, if you are of a Spanish-speaking heritage, you can have it in Spanish as well. And we're hoping, were it not for COVID, we would have seen it in other languages. Because for those that are not aware, we have Flying Disc Press Latin America. So some of our books are out in Spanish, not all of them by any stretch. We also have Flying Disc France. My colleague there, Jean Libero, for whatever reason, didn't want to put Flying Disc Press. He just calls it Flying Disc France. He has done a remarkable job and has translated again some of our books into French and have been published accordingly. And I'm hoping that introducing UFOs will be next on his list. Jean is a professional translator. That's what he does for a living. So it just depends on how busy he is. But hopefully that's next on his list. So we'll have it in Spanish. We've got it in Spanish and English already. Maybe French and other languages as we move along.
Okay, and when does Digital Demon arrive?
March the 1st. Same as Trey Hudson's The Meadow Project.
Okay, so are you taking pre-orders, or will it just be from that date?
It'll just be from that date.
Okay.
And what I'd intended to do this year at Flying Disc Press was just do 6 books. So you'd have 1 book every 2 months. But other stuff came in, and I couldn't say no. I have said no to some, but those that like Ronnie's and like Phillips, because Phillips came out at the same time as The Lights Upon the Hills by Richard Rugby, which I think we've got lined up for a future interview.
Yes, we have. Around about 2nd week in February, we're recording with Richard.
Yeah, so, the only way to do it was to bring them out both together and make sure that the books weren't of similar content, that they were completely different, if you like.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hopefully doing.
Okay, so how do we find Flying Disc Press?
Just go online, flying.com, and it'll take you to our blog, and I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
You just punch in Flying Disc Press or punch in, Sir Philip of Mantle, and you'll find me.
UFO
somewhere.
royalty. I ain't got that in yet, have I? There you go.
You'll find there's no problem, and at Flying Disc Press, it's been 5 years now, believe it or not, and there's something for everybody. So you can have a look at the blog. There's all the previous publications on there as well. So take your pick.
Talking of 5 years, the February the 1st edition of Outer Limits magazine will be our 5th anniversary. So there you go. It'll be our 5th birthday. So there you go. If you want to know more about Outer Limits mag, we have a new website, which is all the W's. It's chris0597.wixsite, wixsite.com/OLM-mag. You can find us there. And that's brilliant. So I think that's a nice place to end the conversation there today. So Ronnie, thank you very much for joining us. Take care, stay safe, and our best regards to you and your family.
Thank you very much to you both, you and Chris and Philip. It's been an honour, as always an honour. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
I hope you get your house renovations done soon,
yeah,
Ronnie.
It's coming on beautifully.
You've drained the moat and rebuilt the ramparts, have you?
That's Mantle Towers he's talking about.
It certainly felt like that. My goodness.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Inside Outer Limits is a regular feature on the Paranormal UK radio network.